Welcome to the original Yearbook podcast, brought to you by your local Midwest Yearbook representative, Jamie Silver, proudly representing Herb Jones Yearbooks. Jamie shares his lifelong passions for yearbook and photography to bring you inspiration, how-tos, and timely reminders to support your publication. Please sit back, enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes.
Well, hello everyone, this is Jamie Silver with Herb Jones Yearbooks and Varsity Brands. Welcome to the November episode of the Yearbook podcast. We've got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in, but before we do so, I just want to share what we're going to cover. We're going to do 4 quick demonstrations, and those are on uploading batches of candid images to the site, uploading your portrait CD, proofing the portraits before flowing them, and some tips and tricks on indexing for those of you who have an index. But first, I'd like to start and share a presentation I've put together on iPhone photography. Many of you know, and I've shared some photography presentations in the past with DSLRs and film cameras. My background is photography, and one of the most common questions I get is, what about my smartphone? So I call it iPhone photography simply because I personally use an iPhone, but really this applies to any smartphone device. So I'd like to share that with you now, and then we will jump into those demonstrations. So again, today I want to talk about iPhone photography and specifically how it's a camera in your pocket and it's always available to you. Now, I did note in the upper right corner here that this photo, and I believe just about every photo in this presentation, have been taken with a smartphone, iPhone or otherwise. So that is something to note as just examples of the imagery that you can capture from these pocket phones that are always with us. So to start, I put this up there to share, again, just where I'm coming from. Both of these cameras are amazing cameras. These are my 2 main cameras, the Nikon and the iPhone. I have the 10, last year's model, and I love it. And there's pros and cons to both. And in this presentation, I'd like to share what those pros and cons are, but really highlight the amazing capabilities that the iPhone or Android phone in our pocket have. So to start, again, it's the camera in your pocket as shown with the genes here, right? Number one, it's always with you, and it can do a lot without spending a penny more on it. So through this presentation, I'm going to share a couple tips and tricks of things to do with the phone itself, and then some options that we can add on, okay? Lenses and whatnot. Now, we want to proceed cautiously with that because it's a slippery slope. Much like photography itself with the equipment, you don't want to get too bogged down with the equipment. I want to show you a couple examples, but I do want to highlight what you can do without spending another penny. So again, we're going to show you some examples of things that you can add to your iPhone to make it even better, but we're going to start with some quick tips that cost you nothing. So the first one is to hold it in landscape mode more often. So by default, because we use these as our phones and texting and all that, we typically hold it vertically so we can type on it and scroll through websites and social media. Then we also tend to hold it the same way when we're taking pictures. And what I'd like to urge you to do is hold it more often. You want to do both, but hold it more often by turning it in landscape mode. And the reason is, if you kind of look at your yearbook from last year, you'll notice that majority of the pictures on the pages are horizontal. We always have some verticals, but predominantly they're horizontal. So you want to get both, and of the same scene. You want to make sure you get a horizontal and vertical, because if we only shoot vertically, when we place it on our yearbook spread and we put it in a horizontal spot, we have to enlarge it to make it fit. And remember, working with a phone with limited pixels, capabilities, and all that, and if we start off right away by enlarging it to fit a horizontal space, we're already off on the wrong foot. So again, doesn't cost you a penny. Turn that phone, hold it the other way in your hands, and take pictures in landscape more often. Specifically on the iPhone, we're going to talk about changing the file format, and I'm going to show you a little video of where to do that in the settings. Then we're going to talk about getting closer to your subject. One of the limitations of any smartphone device is the lens, right? We can only get so close with the lens rather than kind of that backpack of equipment you see on the right, where we have a lens for every purpose, tool for the right job. With the phone, we have what we have and we got to make use of it, so you need to move closer. So you got to use your feet and get closer to the action. And then we're going to focus on photography basics, because when it comes down to it, no matter what camera we're working with, whether it's a phone or a DSLR or a film camera, it really all boils down to photography 101. So to start, I want to share this yearbook spread with you as an example of thinking smaller camera and smaller results. beautiful spread here. The reason I picked it to illustrate this is the big dominant photo that's a full bleed on the 2 pages here. That's an example of probably one you'd want to get from a larger camera, okay? But then all the other pictures on the page that you see down the left and down the right, those probably could be captured with an iPhone, and primarily because they're used smaller. And that's my example here on this slide. Think smaller camera, smaller results. Not to be negative about smaller results, but using them smaller on the page because we don't have to, stretch that photo, and then we run into resolution problems. So again, when you look through your yearbook spreads and you're thinking, boy, what could I achieve with an iPhone or Android? Probably not the large dominant photos like this, especially if you have a large book. But all the other things, you can probably get those captured with a smartphone. Okay, I mentioned settings, and this is very important if you're using an iOS device, an iPhone, or iPad for that matter. So I love Apple, but one thing they did, I believe it was last year, is they changed the default in the settings where the pictures were in a kind of an odd format to make the files smaller. And I understand why they did, because I don't know if those who are listening have ever had the problem where your phone gives you a message saying, you're almost out of memory, right? We're always taking so many pictures on these things and downloading music and movies where the phone just fills up. So what Apple did is they changed the default to new photos being taken in a compressed fashion that would save space, which is wonderful, except that new format that they've created doesn't work with most websites, especially when you talk about enlarging a photo. And for all of us listening, Yearbook, it just doesn't work with eDesign and InDesign. So you want to make sure that you change the format. I have a little video of just recording how to find this. So the first one is settings. You want to go there. And then you want to go to the camera settings right down here. I'm finding it here. You want to go to camera. Number 3, formats. Number 4, you want to change it to most compatible instead of high efficiency. Again, they changed the default to efficiency to save space, but we can't use those files readily on eDesign. We can, but we have to convert them. So if you run into that situation, let me know. But the way to proactively fix this is go in here to any phone that you might be using, or even share this if you're collecting crowdsourcing images, to have people change the setting to most compatible. Okay, I mentioned back to basics and really photography. So in preparation for this presentation, I started Googling iPhone photography because that's a thing now. If you Google it, you'll find all the things I found on YouTube and blogs. And what I realized after looking through many of these resources is really it's not iPhone photography necessarily. It's really what I consider, because I grew up with it, it's just photo basics. It's just 101. And some of those 3 topics that I'd like to share on the screen here are composition and framing, picture up in the upper left corner of my daughter here, moving your camera around to compose the photo so it's pleasing to the eye and tells a story, because that's at the end on Yearbook, that's what we're all trying to do here. We're trying to use photography, photojournalism to tell a story that complements what's written on the page of the yearbook. So the simple example here of this picture, I moved the camera such that I framed it. This was an art activity at a children's museum, and I framed it here with the markers and the glue sticks and the scissors and all that to help tell that story, and then placing the primary subject, and you'll see in the rule of thirds here, at one of those intersections, and blurring out the background. You've heard me say that before, to remove distractions in the background and really highlight your primary subject, again, to tell that story. This is an example of the rule of thirds. If you imagine a tic-tac-toe board, wherever they intersect here, that's where you want to, generally speaking, place your primary subject. So the surfer in this example over here, my daughter's face in this one. Most phones will have this option to just turn the grid on, and it places this tic-tac-toe. I've also seen it in most DSLRs, where you can also turn that grid on. That will help you identify, as you're framing your shot, where to place your primary subject. Again, where they intersect here. And then the third option is, third topic to talk about is exposure. I have a little video to highlight this. I think you probably know this, but I just want to highlight it real quick. So I'll play that. When you tap to focus on the screen, you can also move that little slider up and down to adjust the exposure and then lock it. And that's what AEAF stands for, exposure lock and focus lock. So that's just tapping, but then holding your finger on the display of the iPhone. Again, it's probably the same on Android. I just don't have an Android device, but you click and hold, and then it lets you move that slider up and down to correct for exposure. This example here that I just did in the backyard of the camera with the bright trees in the background is analogous to a very common problem we all have on Yearbook, where you might have, say, a club picture day, and you don't have an option, and the students are standing in front of a window, and the window is very bright, right? And inevitably, if we don't adjust the exposure, the window's going to be bright and the faces are going to be dark, and we really can't make out who's who. So on an iPhone, you simply tap on their face, like I tapped on the word Nikon on that old camera, and just slide it up or down to adjust the exposure to get the faces brighter. Okay, another cool way to look at your iPhone or Android phone is as an all coverage device, right? So photography, just know its limitations. We've talked about some of them, but those are basically low light conditions can be tricky. Fast action, sports, football, soccer, all that can be tricky. In a sense, telephoto capabilities with the built-in lens is just limited. It is what it is. We will talk about add-on lenses in a second, but again, and then smaller images in the Yearbook, so you don't have to crop it as much. Now, switching gears to videography, similar limitations, but boy, what an amazing tool that we all have in our pocket, and I'll be talking more about that in a minute. And then last, using it as a tool to take notes, or actually record an interview, but taking notes during interviews, so you don't have to worry about taking notes on pen and paper or even typing on a tablet, but you can just be present, have a conversation with someone as an interview and record it on your phone and then transcribe it later. So again, the camera in your pocket, you want to use it for photos, obviously for Yearbook, newspaper, anything else you want to use, but also behind the scene coverage, right? So many of you listening are involved in creating the Yearbook, and kind of a tight-knit group of people, kind of closed doors, and sometimes it's kind of fun to share that with the rest of the student body. So take some pictures. You might just use it on the Yearbook spread later, or you might use it to promote either recruiting people to Yearbook or sharing some examples of what's coming together. So just think of your phone as a quick camera to grab and get behind the scene pictures of how it's all coming together, and also to create commercials to promote Yearbook sales or just promote your Yearbook in general. And we'll talk about extended coverage with video. So if you had, for example, an event at school and you wanted to add video of, say, a parade, you're going to have pictures, obviously, but wouldn't it be cool if you could also add audio and video of the excitement of the parade, and you can incorporate that into your printed Yearbook using QR codes or HP Reveal. If you have any questions about those two topics, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help you with that. But again, the phone in your pocket lets you capture a lot of that to use for those purposes later. And then, of course, we talked about audio for interview notes or recording an actual interview to share. Okay, so as a photography tool, I mentioned up front that it's a slippery slope, and you want to be cautious here because you don't want to spend so much money on adding things to your phone where, we might as well put that money towards just buying, air quotes, a real camera. But some things that are available, and there's two main ones that I was looking at. This first one that I got is called the Beast Grip. There's also one called Moments, where they have a case like this where you attach lenses to it. So additional lenses and filters are available. Neutral density filters, polarizers, some basic stuff in a photography bag are available for the smartphone world. It also lets you have better telephoto. Tripod mounts, we can give more stability to our camera. Again, it might struggle in low light, but outside on a sunny day works very well. But you can also add a light or a flash. One thing I learned relatively recently was a built-in shutter release. So back in the day, if we wanted to do a slow exposure of something, we'd bump the camera. We'd put the camera on a tripod. We'd attach this remote kind of control with a button to take the picture so we wouldn't shake the camera. Apple thought of that. It's actually included. You guys already have it. Those wired headphones, the white ones, not the AirPods, the wireless ones, but the ones that came with the phone, the wired headphones actually have this built in. If you put it on your camera, plug it in, and press the volume up, volume down button on the microphone, hanging down from your ear, it actually is a remote shutter release. So you can put the camera down, lock it down on a tripod, and click that button to take a picture. It's pretty cool. Because it's a camera and a phone and connected, obviously, sharing images via AirDrop, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is an amazing built-in, doesn't cost you anything way to get photos or video from your phone to your computer and then upload to eDesign and put them to use without losing any quality. It's very important. It maintains full resolution. So any questions about AirDrop, feel free to let me know. Happy to help with that. And of course, because you're connected, immediate sharing capabilities with social media. Again, if you're sharing and promoting your Yearbook, you might want to tweet out, or however you might want to, whatever social media platform you want to use, take it with the phone, might be better with some of these lenses and whatnot, and then share it immediately, because that's what the world we live in, because you're connected to the internet. Last one on here for photo is the built-in burst mode. Again, back in the day with film cameras and DSLRs today, you had to get a pretty good one to be able to take rapid pictures. So think of a sporting event. I'm going to share an example of a skateboarder. When you want to take, say 20 pictures rapidly and then pick the one with the best composition, you had to have a pretty good camera to do so. Now on the iPhone, all you do is, instead of clicking that white button to take the picture, you just hold your finger down on it and it takes a bunch of pictures. So here's an example of that. So the skateboarder here, by holding your thumb down on the white trigger release on the front of the phone, it's going to take all of these pictures extremely quickly, and then you can simply select the one that's the best, perhaps the middle one there. So really cool burst mode built in. Okay, again, these are just a few examples all shot on a phone just to demonstrate, and I specifically picked the ratio 2:1 here of 2 horizontals to 1 vertical, because generally speaking, again, we're going to use more horizontal pictures in the printed yearbooks. You want to keep that in mind while you're out shooting. And then the vertical demonstrates the portrait mode built into the iPhone, where it blurs out the background. Really cool effect. And then the others, especially the sunset picture, again, it gets you pretty close to the rule of thirds, and then just a wide angle shot of the stadium there. So again, just a couple examples to get you thinking about, the capabilities of this phone in our pocket with camera. Now, switching gears to video and some options. So video is one of those things where it's proven that people will watch kind of a shaky video, shaky literally, but they won't listen or watch one that has poor audio and they can't hear what's happening. So audio is king. So microphones are a huge thing to improve the audio quality, and they're not that expensive. So audio is everything. You can also add a light when needed, because you're having a little hot shoe or cold shoe on the top of this case that the phone is in right now with the lens. And again, you don't need all of that, but to be able to add a light when needed in dark situations makes a huge difference. Universal mounts, tripod mounts, and it's just more stable. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm shooting with my phone, it's so slippery and delicate that it's just sometimes hard to hold it stable. When you put a case on it like this one or many others on the market, it honestly becomes easier to hold as a camera. So it gives you more stable options. Okay, now I'm gonna show you an example here of a wireless mic and tripod test with my friend Jim here. So for take one, all I did was I held my phone, no case, no microphone, just the phone, just like it came from Apple, held it, pointed at Jim, did a quick little sample with you so you could hear the audio, and then we'll get to take two in a second.
You're working in e-design and you think that it's taking too long or that it's too hard to do, you probably are doing it wrong and you're doing it the hard way. So I would really suggest calling tech help or looking at tech menu to figure out how to do it easier and quicker.
Also, good advice on e-design and calling us. We're here to help. But as you can tell, it's fine, right? The video works. There's a little bit of background noise, a little bit of camera movement because I'm holding it. So on take two, what I did is I put it in the case, as you can see in the picture above, and I put it on a tripod and I set it down on the table in front of me. So the camera's not moving, and then this wireless mic that you see in the picture plugged into the phone then has a microphone. You'll see it attached to Jim's collar there, and you'll hear a difference here.
Okay, so if you're working in e-design and you feel like it's taking too long or it's too hard, chances are that you're doing it wrong. So please, go on the Tech Help menu or call Tech Help at 877-362-7750. They're open Monday through Friday till 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You just need to have your job number and your questions. You don't have to be the advisor. You could just be a student calling from home. Call Tech Help.
So also, again, good advice. Please call tech, call your rep, call all of us as the team. We're here to support you when you have questions on e-design. But you could really hear a difference there, right? The picture is steady, there's no movement, and the audio quality just by putting the mic on him versus the microphone in just the same microphone we use for a phone call, it's pretty night and day. So think about adding a mic if you are doing a lot of video for supplemental projects on your yearbook or to support the yearbook or whatnot. Lastly, we want to talk about taking notes during interviews. So the voice memo app that comes with it doesn't cost you a penny. It works really well. You see it in the bottom left corner there. You don't need anything else. If you're just recording audio to then listen to later and type it out, you don't need to buy anything. Just use that app that came with it, hold it, point it at them, push record, and have a conversation. Now, if you need better audio, for example, if you're going to be sharing this interview out or incorporating it, again, via HP Reveal or QR codes where you want people to, when the book comes out, take their phone, point it at the book, and listen to the interview or see the interview, audio is important. So in that case, you want to look at a microphone, right? So the microphone in the middle of the road, the kind of 2 squares, is the one I used with Jim. You can also get kind of a reporter style microphone. Those get a little costly, $100, $200. But if you look at the bigger ones to the right, the little one that's coiled up there that you just clip on someone, I think you can get those for like $20. And it'll yield the same audio. You're just connected to them with a wire. And especially if you're just doing audio, you don't need wireless. Why spend the money on it, right? The one on the bottom is a really cool option. I think it's about $50. Again, from Rode, there's plenty out there. But this one has a little connection at the bottom that lets you plug in 2 of those lapel mics. Clip one on you as the interviewer, clip one on the interviewee, click a button, hold it at your side, and just have a conversation with someone, capturing both of your voices in really high quality audio. So again, ranging from $20 to $200, a lot of options out there. If you're curious about this, would like more information, please let me know. But the point here is it really allows you to focus on the interview and not worry about the equipment. And again, you can do a lot with just the free voice memo app built in. So in closing, that is iPhone photography, again, smartphone photography, going from film to this thing we all have in our pocket. It's pretty amazing to be able to crowdsource all of this. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. This is a picture of the most current iPhone 11, that actually has 3 lenses on the back and really gives you even more choices. I have not used one yet myself, but for those of you listening, feel free to share. But it gives you, a standard lens, a wide-angle lens, and a telephoto all built in. Don't need to buy any accessories for it, so that is pretty cool. I hope you found that helpful, and any questions, please do let me know. Okay, now we're going to get into the demonstrations I have for today. And again, you can jump ahead by the topic listed below in the notes, kind of like a table of contents in your yearbook. So you can jump to the demonstration that is helpful to you and skip over the others. For the first one, we're going to talk about uploading pictures. This is a common question I get when we're looking at the images and we're trying to upload, and it says image, you can upload 50 at a time. Now, as a note to that, you can upload tens of thousands of pictures if you'd like to our site. We have no limit on how many you can upload, but we limit it to 50 in a batch, and that's really just the nature of the internet, right? The internet is what it is. Sometimes it drops out, and we are finding that if people were queuing up, say, 1,000 photos, and there's a small drop on the connection at school or at home for you, it's hard to tell where the upload left off, right? So by doing it in chunks of 50, it's easier to kind of regroup and re-upload if the internet goes out. So to do that, I have just a little tip to share with you. So I'm going to click on this to activate the drop zone for photos. I'm going to open up a folder of sample images I have, and I numbered these just to make it easier. And we're going to put these side by side. And the question I often get is, boy, do I really need to count out 50? Because that just, it's more work, right? So here's my suggestion. Open up a window, physically open up a window and look at the count. And again, I numbered these just to make these easy. But on a Mac, especially Windows 2, I'm sure you can simply click on a range of them. And as soon as you start moving it, it tells you, hey, you've got 44 selected, right? So my point here is to use the window as a measuring device, right? So you don't have to count them. So let's say, okay, we're about 50 here. So I'm going to select the first one, and I'm going to select this one because I happen to know it's 50, but we're going to resize the window so it only shows me 50 at a time. And then I can drag and drop, and it queues up those 50 images. And just do a quick edit just to fast forward so you're not waiting for my upload to finish. So once they are complete, right, we're going to close this. We're going to click it again to activate it. And now, because I've used this window as kind of a measuring device, if you will, I'm simply going to scroll down, and the blue ones are the ones we uploaded. I'm going to go to the very next one, shift click the next 50 or so. This one happens to be less because I didn't have 100 photos, and upload the next batch. So this way you get to use this window as a means of just counting out very quickly which 50 pictures you're uploading, scroll down, pick the next 50, and move on, rather than having to count them out every time. Now, switching gears, now we're going to, instead of talking about candid photos, we're going to look at the portrait CD that you guys are receiving from your photo company. Because this is also a very common question this time of year is how do I deal with it? It looks weird. I don't know if these are the right formats. So I'd like to highlight those. And to do that, we're going to jump down to portraits, right? Because they don't go in images, they go to portraits. So have this screen ready. You're going to pop the CD into your computer if they gave you one. Most photo companies are doing a file that you just download. Either way, what you're going to get is a folder of images that looks like this. And this is often where I get phone calls saying, boy, this looks weird. So I wanted to share it on screen with you to show you what it looks like when a photo company prepares a photo CD or download in what's called a PSPA format. And when they do so, it's going to look a little foreign to you, but it's in a format that works perfectly with eDesign and lets you upload pictures to flow on the page using the automation that we've built in. So we'll cover more of that in the next few videos, and you're welcome to reach out to me if you've already done this and I can share the next steps. But if you have folders of pictures here, right, and they just have these weird numbers, and again, I get a common question saying, why aren't there names? It just says 005 JPEG. Again, that's okay. If you see folders containing JPEGs and then you see a copyright, index, and README text file, you're good to go. And here's the next step. So you close this window you get from them, or you copy it from the CD. You're going to right click and you're going to compress that file. On a Windows machine, you'll go to send to zipped or compressed file. And what it does is it makes a new file on your desktop. And it's the same name, but with the ZIP extension and this little icon. We're going to take that and upload it. So now we go back to our screen, and we're going to go to, again, under Portraits, Portrait CD, under Import. Again, PSPA, I mentioned earlier, we're going to look for that. So I'm going to browse to my desktop. We're going to find that zipped file, click Open, and we're going to upload. And you're going to see the status bar. And in doing so, we are able to get the photographs, the first name, last name, grade. I think the example I'm using here in my kind of demonstration is just staff, but you would get everyone in your grade and depending on what grades you have at school. So this is, if you see this status upload and there's step 1 of 3 and it completes with a green box saying completed, you're good to go. Again, through just some quick video editing, just want to speed that up for you. If you get to this point where it says upload complete and it gives you a number of 317 in this example, you're good. You've uploaded that batch of pictures, and yours will probably include everyone in your school. After retake day, they'll probably give you one CD or one download that will contain one picture, for each person, but all grades and staff. So once you get this, we're going to click OK. And then one common question I get, people get nervous when they don't see the name. So I want to highlight, you simply click on Data View, and now you have the last name, first name, grade, teacher column if you've used that. Basically, any information captured at picture day will be itemized in these columns, which you can then sort by these columns, and you can also flow on the pages based on any one of these pieces of information, typically grade or teacher. Now, the next demo I should say that I'd like to share with you on portraits before we get to flowing them on the pages is the second step. So the first one is uploading, 2 is proofing. And this is where, frankly, you're going to spend the most time. It's not hard work, it's just a little tedious sometimes because we need to proof and make sure we correct any spelling errors or grade errors right here. And it's as simple as clicking and typing. So, in this school, for example, it's labeled Staff Upper School. Yours will probably say a number, right? 1st through 12th grade. And it's very important that you maintain consistency. So if you do it by teacher, make sure if you're moving this picture to a different teacher, make sure you use the same syntax as another student in that class. Capital letter, Miss, Mrs., all that. It has to be specific because later we're going to be able to pull from this column or the grade column, say 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and say, okay, anyone that's labeled as a 9th grader versus freshman, you got to make sure you're consistent. Pull anything that has the number 9 and put them in alphabetical on these pages. That's the automation. That's the powerful part. So to achieve that, I want to share with you just kind of a little tip on proofing these, because as you know, as you start looking at these, I don't know about you, but my eyes go a little crazy as you start scrolling through and finding all these names and doing it in this relatively small window. Here's my suggestion, and it might seem a little archaic, but bear with me. It seems to work really well. We're going to go to Advanced Search, and again, any information on that CD is going to be listed here, either a list of teacher names and a list of grades. So you would probably have them numbered out. In this case, I'm just going to pick Upper School, Search, and it's going to give me a listing of everyone, in this case 176, that are listed as upper school. The next step is simply File, Print. This is what I meant by it might seem archaic, but believe me, it makes your life easier. What it does is it opens up a PDF proof of all of those people with the picture, name, designation, all that. You can then print this on your printer, hand it out. I would staple it by grade, depending on how many grades you have or classrooms. Print this out and then get some more eyeballs at it, making sure you find the corrections. Again, simple example. Let's say Susan goes by Sue and she wants to be Sue in the yearbook and we all agree. Someone take a red pen, write Sue on here. And then you simply find her in here, right? So I search for Susan, found Susan, and if her name, we want to do Sue, we simply fix it right here on first name. So again, it's just click and type. It's not hard, but by doing it on paper form first, marking it up, then you can come in here, simply type in a search, find what you're looking for, make the change, move on to the next. So again, this is step 2. It's a little involved, but it's easy work. It just takes some time and get as many people to look at it as possible, compared to school roster, last year's yearbook, all that. But that's a quick demonstration on how to upload a portrait CD and then how to proof what came in from that CD. Okay, switching gears to the last demonstration for this episode. And again, if you don't have an index in your book, you can skip over this. But for those of you who do have an index, I'd like to share a couple examples of indexing. So we're going to come in here to the pages under the ladder. We're going to go to Build Index. And the beauty of the index tool that's built in now is all the time in the background, it is scanning your pages and looking for what it thinks you might want in the index in the back of the book. And honestly, it's very simple what it does. It looks for 2 or more consecutive words with a capital letter, right? So Joe Smith. It thinks, hey, Joe Smith is on page 10. I'm going to add it to this database for you to review. Other things that it's going to find: boys basketball, girls volleyball. Again, 2 or more consecutive words with a capital letter. So if you are one who like to have those in your index, you're good to go, you're done. If you don't want those in there, there's a simple tool to ignore them. And I'll do a quick example here. These, looking at that, we know we don't want that in the book. We're just going to click ignore and they go away, okay? So I want to show you a couple of things to do here, and I'm going to bring up an example. And I think I have a David in here that I just want to give a quick example of how to combine. Here we go. So we have Dave and David, same person. Again, on one page, on 34, it's David. On page 3, it's Dave. And we know that we want him to go by Dave in the index. So it's as simple as shift clicking both of those, and we're going to combine. And then it's going to ask us, how would you like to represent this person in the index? And I'm going to choose Dave and click OK. And it marks it as combined with this blue icon. Now, the beauty of doing this is we've set up a rule in this database, right? So anytime it sees David with that last name or Dave, it knows that you want that to be Dave, and it's just going to put comma, page, and add it to the list without you even having to do anything. So here is my suggestion. And my yearbook rep told me this in high school, and of course I didn't do it, and I learned the hard way, so please learn from my mistakes. Index early and often. Okay, and my recommendation is to run this index before you submit your batch of pages for a deadline, right? And in doing so, as you go through this list, you're inevitably going to find some errors. It just happens. The book has a lot of names in it, and by finding the error through the indexing process here, you're able to not only fix it as I just showed you with Dave's example, but also go back and fix it on the page before you submit it to be printed. So again, my recommendation is to index early and often and do it before you submit pages so you have the opportunity to go fix something if it needs to be fixed. So I hope that's helpful. I will be sharing more on portraits and indexing and all that in later episodes. If you're already further in the process and you'd like the next step, please reach out to me directly and I'll be more than happy to give you a hand. Until then, have a wonderful day and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Yearbook Podcast. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, feel free to reach out to Jamie and his team anytime. Jamie can be reached directly at 920-965-6262 or 847-561-8525 or at jesilver@herfjones.com.